We are so very vulnerable, folks. When it comes to computer, when it comes to internet, power, logistics, infrastructure like water, even our bank accounts, everything is on the internet now, and we're seeing a spike of cyber attacks. What happens when it stops being a bunch of podunk teenagers going back and forth across the ocean and it starts being countries starting to attack each other? We may see things change in a world of difference. Some folks have been out there talking about a digital cyber attack 9/11, a critical attack, or a cyber Pearl Harbor. And when we start thinking about these type of things, what happens if the opening attack or the declaration of war between a country is a massive cyber attack that shuts down all of our systems? What will we do? What can we do? And what individually can we do about it? Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report, everyone. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant, and I'll dig into things. And when I've been looking into what we're seeing with all these cyber attacks, I've been reporting on them this past week. We have a lot more happening right now. All the ports in Australia shut down this past week, right? That's a pretty big deal. And we're seeing infrastructure attacks. We're seeing pipelines shut down. Remember the Colonial Pipeline? That was a cyber attack. We're having cyber attacks hitting critical infrastructure that we keep being told can't be attacked by computers. And then it is. And it's kind of disturbing, folks. If these are lone wolf attackers and small cells, what could happen when a country who employs full-time people, who has access to the highest levels of technology, what happens when they go on the rampage and try to bring an attack? What happens even if places like Iran really bring out the guns that they have digitally to attack the United States? And here's the thing. If we get attacked digitally in cyberspace, will we even feel justified in using military force against countries? That's a question that we haven't really crossed the bridge on. So far, it seems like when we get hit by cyber attacks, we hit them back with cyber attacks. And when we hit countries with cyber attacks, we expect them not to attack us back with boomsticks and such, right? Well, last Thursday, U.S. Treasury interest rates climbed 0.15% in a matter of minutes. The world went, what is happening? And some people started to kind of freak out a little bit. Stock markets started dropping. It was a hack on the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. Yes, a Chinese bank got hacked, and so U.S. markets started going crazy. Because that makes perfect sense. Because U.S. Treasury bills are clearly always bought by Chinese banks. Well, apparently this Chinese bank isn't really the main buyer of a lot of U.S. Treasury bills, but on these auctions, it kind of processes orders from all over China and some other countries. So when they got hacked, they didn't participate in the bond offering last Thursday. And so we saw a whole lot of U.S. Treasury bills not being sold. And so we saw the interest rates start spiking up. 0.15%. Doesn't sound like a whole lot. But when you're talking about $75 trillion of debt in the U.S. market, all looking at that 30-year Treasury bill, yeah, things got a little spicy. All because a Chinese bank got hacked. Now, I don't know all there is to know about China, but if China wanted to attack the United States, I don't think they'd have to do much more than just knock on the door or give a little phone call to the bank president of the Industrial Commercial Bank of China and say, hey, by the way, this bond offering coming up, how about you just not participate? Just take your systems offline. I mean, they don't need to hack it. They already control it. The fact that a Chinese bank can make the United States stock market start going should tell you about how dependent and how interrelated our economies are. And that's kind of disconcerting. That's not even talking about the Chinese banks hacking the United States banks, right? We are extremely vulnerable. Vulnerable in ways that we can't even imagine just yet. How much much of our industrial water supply, our infrastructure, how many of our transformers are made in China? And we keep saying this kind of stuff, but many of our transformers get made in China, and we don't have enough transformers. What happens if they just stop selling them to us? Well, the power grid would have some issues. What happens if they stop selling us all the chemicals for our water treatment plants? We'd stop having fresh water. If you're like, oh, well, our water treatment plants, they stock up on these chemicals. No, they don't. No, they don't. You'd think they would, but that would be intelligent, and we don't do that. They don't sit around with all that calcium hypochlorite. They don't do that. That stuff's nasty to store. So they just kind of buy it as they need it. Yeah. And then you start talking about the machinery. When people have parts that break, they order new parts. And a lot of those parts come from China. We are extremely vulnerable to not only our economies being interrelated, not only our financial systems being interrelated, but China has their entire internet behind the Great Firewall of China. All the internet connections that go into China go through basically digital walls. The Chinese literally can flip a switch and turn off the outside world to their internet. So if you want to hack China, you have to have a terminal inside China. That's kind of a problem. Now, I'm not saying there aren't ways around that, but the United States can't even fathom doing that without our internet. Like, it ain't built that way. The United States could, like, turn off the internet, supposedly. They say that they can do that. So let's just take them at their word. So the United States can turn off the internet in the United States, but then we don't have the internet, right? How much runs on the internet? Like everything. Several generations can't function without the internet, right? So what are we going to do without the internet? Well, we're not going to be drinking water. We're not going to have power. We're not going to have a lot of stuff. Friends, if a cyber war happens between the United States and China, same thing with bear country out there, Russia. If they get into a cyber war with the United States, they've already locked down their cyber systems, their internet. They've designed their internet system so that they can protect themselves. Everyone in the world is preparing for World War III except for the United States, it seems like. We don't even have a thought in our minds about how to protect ourselves from other countries when it comes to cyber warfare. We don't have a thought about that. And every cybersecurity expert out there that ever talks about the subject doesn't even know where to start, because we are so vulnerable, so open, that any steps that you take to making the United States more secure really won't make us more secure. You know, it's like you're going to the beach and you start building a little sand dam against the ocean. It ain't gonna work. You need concrete. You need a lot of concrete to block the ocean, to build a seawall. You can't just, well, how much sand should we move? Sand doesn't stop water. Everybody knows that. Everyone's ever tried to block the ocean waves coming in with sand, which is a fun little game to do at the ocean. But it doesn't work because it just like eats away at it, right? The same thing with the United States. It's just our internet. We're open on so many sides. Which way are you going to build a wall? And who's going to be in charge of that off switch? Who's going to be controlling all the traffic coming in and out? I know. Freedom-wise, we don't like that idea. But when it comes to national defense, we have no way of doing it. And our enemies know that. India just had a hack. 99% of Indians in the country of India have their biometric data into this one app, which is kind of horrifying as it is. Well, 815 million people's identity on that app with their biometric data is being sold on the black market. 815 million people. 1 in 10 people on Earth just had their identity stolen and is for sale on the black market. If that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. And that's how they interact with their government. That's how they get their welfare pensions. That's how they get their the equivalent of any money from the government. And a lot of their banking institutions use that app too now. They're not supposed to, but they do anyway. That's their digital ID. 815 million people had their unhackable digital ID stolen. That's crazy. And yet we're seeing cyber warfare like this happening on a greater and greater level. Friends, are we paying attention to what's happening out there? Are we paying attention to what could happen to us? How can we prepare ourselves? You need to prepare yourself for a world without internet. You need to have enough assets that if all of your online stuff, all your online banks, all of that kind of stuff, you suddenly have no access to it. Or somebody goes into your bank account and empties it out because they had your login information. Sure, you can go to the bank and petition them and be like, hey, someone stole all my money. Maybe they'll be able to recover it, and maybe they won't. What happens if a whole bunch of people get their money all stolen all at once? Will they be able to fix all of that all at once? Maybe not. Maybe not. What happens if all your money gets transferred from your brokerage account? Your stocks and bonds get transferred out, and you only see it the next week, and it's already gone. If you don't hold it in your hands, it's not yours. And if you can't secure the thing, it's not yours. That's just the way the world works. It's not the way the world should work, but that's the way the world does work. Digital everything is really just one mouse click away from going bye-bye. One EMP away from going bye-bye. One power outage from being completely irrelevant. Sure, some server somewhere might say that you own that asset still, but if you don't have electronics, if you don't have any power, if none of the banks in your area have power, what good is it to you? That's a question you can ask there too. All right, friends. If you want to check out some more from this channel, there's another video right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.